Well, hello again, and welcome to another edition of Wrestling Beyond the Pulpit with the Good News Gang. I am your host, Pastor Matt West from Marble Memorial United Methodist Church in Milan, Michigan, and I'm joined today by my tag team partners, Pastor Kim Metzer from Hope and Welcome Corners UMC in Hastings, and Pastor Curtis Clark from Marysville UMC. Well, thank you for joining me today for our discussion. How are you both doing after Easter?
Good. All those things, like I said the other day, all those things that I put off that I would get to after Easter. It's now after Easter. So
it's now after Easter, yes.
It's time to get those things taken care of.
Yep. Yeah, I'm trying to work on some laundry, so that I have something to wear this week.
Be good.
One of those things that kind of got put off during Holy Week.
Right.
There we go. Maybe.
Washing the linens with Jesus's. So. Well, we have come together to discuss those issues that we're wrestling with, and so we've got some more questions that we're gonna go ahead and throw out there and discuss today. And usually there's some sort of icebreaker question to get our conversation going. And we were talking a little bit about this one before we started recording. And the question is, what is the dumbest way you've been injured?
I'm anxious to hear this story.
Mm-hmm. Oh, okay. Well, I said I had a good one. So that's what Pastor Kim's anxious for. So, So there was a summer, one of the last summers that I lived up north with my folks before moving out. I had a summer job, and one of the things that I was working for this gas company. It was like a substation out in the middle of nowhere. And one of the jobs that we had to do was mow the grounds around, the station. And there was this area where there was this little ditch and, little ditch, we'll say. And so somehow I managed to get the mower kind of in an awkward position and didn't initially have enough momentum to go up the other side of the ditch. And so the back of the mower was in the ditch and the front was facing up towards the road. And I tried a rocking technique to try and get out, and ended up giving it a little too much gas, and it ended up flipping onto me. Oh. And of course, as I see the hood of the riding mower coming at me, I put my arm up as if I was going to stop it, and hence broke my arm.
Oh my.
Wow.
Yeah. So it was one of those things where it flipped me off, and I'm laying down in the ditch and I see this big green hood coming at me. It was like a John Deere riding mower, right, like you would have for your yard. But of course, all I see is green, and I just instinctively put my hand out to try and protect myself, and snap my arm. And so I kind of had a little bit of an S look to my arm. And one of my bosses took me up to the ER, and of course I walk in and I'm kind of holding my arm gingerly, and the lady at the desk is like, "Is there something we can help you with?" And I just kind of went like this, and I was like, "Yeah,
it's supposed to be like this." Yeah.
And so then of course she proceeds to go, "Well, here, I need you to fill out these forms first." Mind you, I'm right-handed. So trying to fill out forms with your non-writing hand was certainly
all in pain.
Was a treat, and so that was probably the dumbest injury that I ever sustained. Instead of just curling up and taking the brunt of it, I just
but better your arm than your back. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So that's my story.
Yikes. I've got nothing. Curtis?
I don't have anything that severe. There have been on a couple of occasions where I just simply lying in bed and go to move one way, and something doesn't move the right way, and muscle gets pulled or thrown out of whack in the back, and it's kind of like I'm laying there somewhat incapacitated for a brief while.
Yeah. The joys of aging.
Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
That's, again, probably about the most severe. There was one time when I was maybe kindergarten or first grade was climbing over a fence, like the gate of a fence in a driveway, and on top of the gate was kind of this ornate, type of little thing, and I'd put my hand on top of the fence between the top of the rail and this ornate thing, and I jumped over and my hand didn't, and so my wrist kind of got sprained, but that was about it.
Oh man.
No, glad it was just the wrist.
Just the wrist. No breakage or anything like that. So.
Well, do you remember the pull tabs that used to be on cans? We were at a softball picnic in Battle Creek, out south of town, so away from any medical services. Anyway, pulled off pop tab, but kept pulling and just dug a nice gouge out of the webbing of my hand.
Yeah.
No stitches though. As a kid, I never broke a bone. I've never broke a bone actually. And I've never had injury related stitches.
Ooh, I did have stitches once. That's another good story. A guy sat on my head and I had to get stitches. Well, we were playing basketball. It was like open gym, and we both went diving for a ball, and I got underneath him, and he hit my head, and so like right above my eyebrow here, it just stretched the skin enough that I had to get like 3 or 4 stitches there to sit it. But yeah, so of course the story was this guy just sat on my head and I had to get stitches. So. And there's always, the occasional pulled muscle, because you haven't done anything for a while and you think you're still in your early 20s.
That is fine.
You can just get up and do something. And the next thing you know, you're pulling up limp because you pulled a hamstring or something.
Right.
Yep.
Yes. Well, I'm glad to see that we can all commiserate.
We survived.
Injuries. So the next question I have for you today is it says, discuss this word from Rabbi Daniel Ruttenberg. It says, knowing when your voice is not needed in a conversation is an important form of discernment.
Knowing when to be quiet.
Yeah.
Knowing when to have an email conversation instead of a meeting.
Yeah, there's a great lyric from a Bob Seger song, and it says, what to leave in and what to leave out.
Yes, that is a great lyric.
And I think it's I think there's times when our voices need to be heard. Our voices are prophetic. Our voices are words of comfort, of hope and encouragement. But I think sometimes we get, and we in general, not just clergy, but just people, we can get into conversation and sometimes we want to overshare or feel like our story has to top the other person's story, especially if it's someone who's going through something traumatic.
Right.
They just need a comforting ear, not so much I had the same thing happen to me too, but it was worse.
Right.
Or I know what you're talking about and it's not
you have
the same.
Exactly. It's like that. Was completely different. Yeah.
Well, I was thinking too, sometimes silence is all right. Like you don't need to fill, the time or the void with speaking up on everything, like if it's done, as opposed to being like, well, I can't just sit here and not say something. I should probably say something. It's like, well,
no, you really don't.
No, that's okay, because then we can either finish or move on to the next thing, or
Silence
can be uncomfortable though, so it's learning to be comfortable in the silence.
Sometimes we know too, just from a time of prayer, that we need to be quiet and we need to be silent so that we can hear how God is responding.
I was just gonna say it's kind of hard to be in a time of discernment if you're still talking. So.
Right.
Well, Richard Rohr writes, to believe that Jesus was raised from the dead is not really a leap of faith. Resurrection and renewal are, in fact, the universal and observable patterns of everything. We might just as well use non-religious terms like springtime, regeneration, healing, forgiveness, life cycles, darkness, and light. The risen Christ is not a one-time miracle, but the revelation of a universal pattern that is hard to see in the short run. Do you agree with this view, or do you believe that what happened on the first Easter morning was an anomaly to the normal pattern of things? Ooh, that's deep.
But I just wanted to swim in the shallow end today.
So according to him, resurrection and renewal are in fact the universal and observable patterns of everything.
And I do agree with that, but it is a cycle though. And you look at plants and they grow from a seed that had been put in the ground, and they grow and then they die, and they in the ground and then they grow and they die. It's a constant cycle. Christ defeated death. There was only one resurrection that didn't cycle back.
Yeah. Yeah, because that's the thing, like, I agree with it, but to say that, Jesus rising from the dead being like a one-time anomaly, or if it's a pattern, or if it's a part of the pattern, I don't know.
I think all those things he names can help us better understand resurrection. Yes. That it is part of God's creation. It is part of the life cycle of everything. If you look at a forest that goes through a life cycle or even a forest that gets destroyed from a forest fire, that death is kind of forced upon it, but over time it will resurrect itself. It will begin to recycle and renew itself, with or without our interceding, I guess, as well. When we talk about, because I used the illustration on Sunday in my message about the sunrise, that it comes every day, but yet every day it brings us new hope. It shows us that the darkness eventually does end. But I think to lump all those things along with Jesus's resurrection, it doesn't give the proper due to what God did with Christ.
Right.
To that point, I don't think the followers, the early believers, the people who were witness to it really had an understanding of renewal, resurrection. I mean, the Jewish people had their own understanding of resurrection, but to actually witness it, to see Christ die on the cross, to have hands on him as he was laid in the tomb, and then 3 days later to witness him walking around and talking, is a whole different ballgame than the cycle of a forest going through regeneration and rebirth, or a plant, or anything else.
Right. Well, I think, those terms, those non-religious terms that he mentioned, as far as, springtime, regeneration, healing, forgiveness, life cycles, darkness and light, those are all helpful in maybe having the conversation about resurrection, but Pastor Kim, I think she was right in the fact that Christ's resurrection was different than how those processes work, So that, I don't know, just seems too easy to try and lump them all together and say like they're one and the same, versus the resurrection of Christ being something that kind of stands alone. I mean, I don't know if I would use the word anomaly, but it certainly is something that I think kind of it stands on its own, versus lumping it in with all those things and just making it seem so easy or watered down. Or
even understanding the reason for the cross. There's So this was my paper that I had to write last night. So I'm understanding it better now. Already turned it in. But there's four major ways of, or four major models of the atonement of the what Christ did for us on the cross, and we're still not arguing, but there's still factions that believe in those different reasons, I guess. So yeah, we're never going to come to an understanding. This just totally is opposite of what I said in my paper. Anyway, we're going to have a varied understanding of the reason for the cross and why it happened. But it alone, I agree, anomaly is not the greatest word, but why are we Christians if we don't believe that it was a sacred thing to happen? If it's just an ordinary daily thing, okay, yeah, I believe in the life cycle of a flower, so that's what gets me through.
Right, because then does that then say that Jesus was just an ordinary anomaly, or
Yes.
Jesus was an anomaly?
Yeah, he was just
Does
a guy.
Right? Does it take
Because there were and crucifixion wasn't a rare thing. Thousands of people died by crucifixion. But why do we focus on this one crucifixion? Not because it was an anomaly, but because death was defeated.
Right, and that's what gives us hope
Mm-hmm.
in our own lives, that when death comes for us all, that it's not the end.
Yes.
It's just the end of our earthly existence. But the hope that we hold on to, that we cling to, is not in the cross, but it's in the emptiness of that tomb.
Yes.
Well, and I'm sure there'd be some that would argue, but maybe outside of religious circles, but to us, this is something, annually that we, and for most of us daily proclaim, that Jesus is alive.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't go around going, oh, the flowers are alive, or
oh, look, that regenerated.
Oh, the tree grew back, or the leaves are back. I don't, there is something special about it. I mean, sure, if you want to make a comparison of the process, that's fine and all well, but yes, I appreciate all that God created, but I don't run around proclaiming that the flowers are in bloom again versus, Jesus is alive or he is risen, every year when we celebrate Easter, so I don't know, maybe that's just too simplistic, and I'm sure there are gardeners out there that would probably, just soon spade me, but, but that's, I don't know, that's just one way that, I guess I look at this as, how can we not think that, Jesus's resurrection was something special in comparison to those other, things that this person is talking about. But,
right.
And I think too, it's when we talk about renewal and spring and even death and resurrection, it's the reminder for us too that if we allow God enough time, if we allow things to lay fallow for a while, kind of in that same question that we had before us about when our voices need to be silent, there needs to be that time of waiting.
Yeah.
That if we trust enough and we have enough belief, enough faith, that God can do amazing things.
Mm-hmm.
When we journey through winter, here in Michigan, we're all hoping,
never ending.
Yeah, and we're all looking towards spring,
Right.
when things change, when the landscape changes, when those trees do begin to bud and bloom and flower, and everything comes back to what we think is life. That doesn't mean that we've been dead for the last 4 or 5 months, but we've just been in a different type of season. So
Yeah, no, that's another good observation. Yeah.
And that's learning to use our voice. That's
Right.
again a discernment. When do we use our voice? Because there is a time, as Ecclesiastes says, for everything, and there is a time to speak up.
And then there's a time to be silent, for sure. Yep. And there's a time for us to be born and a time for us to die.
Yes. But it's not time for us to be resurrected, because there was one that defeated death. I mean, okay, now I'm thinking about it, but that's our hope, is that we are. We don't come back to earth and walk around. Yeah, I should have been silent. Taking this down another road.
Well, as we talk about springtime and regeneration, for those who may not know, this Friday is Earth Day. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, any big plans for Earth Day?
It's my aunt's birthday. She has an Earth Day birthday.
Can't say that I do. If it's nice, I might be outside.
Yes.
If it's nice and dry, I might be outside walking somewhere.
Yeah. Enjoying great earth.
Yes. Yeah.
So just let me ask a quick question before we wrap things up. So, I mean, we've been talking about, springtime and regeneration, these processes in comparison to, the resurrection of Christ. And then, asking the question about Earth Day this week. Do we hold any responsibility as Christians to the earth? I mean, if as followers of Jesus, do we have a responsibility in terms of helping the earth regenerate?
Yeah, I mean,
yes.
Yeah, I think if we're truly loving God, as we're asked to do, that part of loving God is caring for not only his people, but for what he has created for us.
Yes.
And we bear that responsibility that, tells us in the creation story, that we've been given stewardship over his creation, mm-hmm. and that we are to care for it. And that, that is all encompassing. Yes. And sadly, we've made it a political issue, and we don't need to dive into that. But I think it is part of our duty, our obligation, our call as followers of Christ to care for all of God's creation, not just the people who look like us.
Right. Yes. Good point.
And a good one, I think, for us to end on there. Pastor Kim and I will be silent. Well, hey, certainly appreciate the two of you joining me today. It's been a little while, and I know we've been a little busy the last few weeks or what, but that's life in ministry. But very thankful for this opportunity to get together, and we're going to ask those who watch the Good News Gang to just keep Pastor Matt and Pastor Kim in prayer. Unfortunately, they couldn't be with us today. Pastor Jackie, sorry. Well, you could use some prayer too.
Yeah, I could always use prayer.
Pastor Jackie and Pastor Matt couldn't be with us, and so we just ask that you keep them in prayer. And yes, certainly looking forward to seeing what the days ahead have for us now that Easter is come and gone. And so we move forward and see what God has in store for us next. So, all right. Well, any final thoughts before we say goodbye? Zip.
Hey, to be quiet.
Mum is the word. All right. Well, hopefully in your silence, there is some well-deserved discernment going on so that God may lead you and us in a way that pleases him and brings praise and honor and glory to our Lord and Savior. So thank you for joining us again. Don't forget, you can also find us on our YouTube channel. And what's our channel name again, Pastor Kim?
We don't have an official name yet because we need 100 subscribers. So subscribe, people. But Good News Gang, a video ministry.
Okay, Good News Gang of Video Ministry. So you can find us each on our church's Facebook pages and on YouTube. So we hope that you enjoy this. And until we get together next time, peace be with you.